Nüüd suundume Muinsuskaitseameti Norra suure venna juurde, Norra kultuuripärandi ametist. Esindajad räägivad siis pärandipõhisest näidetest. Ma hääldan eestipäraselt neid nimesid, kes järgmisena räägivad. Bitustøl on Norra kultuuripärandi ameti ruumilise planeerimise ja keskkonnasektsiooni vanemnõunik. Vignir Helgason on vanemnõunik ja arhitekt ruumilise planeerimise keskkonna osakonnas ja Noelle Dahl-Poppe on projektijuht rahvusvaheliste suhete osakonnas. Aga olge head, hääldage ise oma nimed uuesti üle. Palun.
We are sitting here at the offices of Directors for Cultural Heritage, or Riksantikvaren, as we call ourselves in Norway. And since we cannot come to you, we have decorated our meeting room with some photos to give us a little Estonian atmosphere. We have a presentation. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. Yes, very good. It's working. First of all, thank you very much for the occasion to speak at this conference. We are very happy to participate. We are with many other Norwegian entities to follow the conference by streaming. We would, of course, much prefer to be at the conference in person and to visit your beautiful country again. But unfortunately, the corona situation prevents us from performing any international travels at the moment. However, the digital format allows many Norwegian entities to follow the seminar, and the high interest shows that the topic of heritage-led development of small historic towns is of great interest to both Estonians and Norwegians. So we are three persons representing the Norwegian Director for Cultural Heritage today. I will start by setting our cooperation in a broader context, and then Vignir and Åse will continue with a professional approach to today's topic. I represent the international section and I have an administrative role. Riksantikvaren is partner in the EEA grants program on local development in Estonia. I will not go into that here, but I just want to say that we have selected 7 good projects and 3 of them have partners from Norway. The Norwegian partners are the municipality of Fredrikstad, beautiful old town, my hometown also, the National Trust of Norway, who will also attend the conference with a speech later today, and Sigmund Vatret. And there is still possibility to establish partnerships. So do not hesitate to contact us if you, during this today's conference, get inspired or have some new ideas, or you see possibilities for mutual learning. The possibilities are there. Stay in touch. In the so-called predefined projects on regeneration of small historic towns between Riksantikvaren and the Estonian National Heritage Board, where in the project we hope to share experience and to get new knowledge on this in this project. And we also hope to inspire to bilateral cooperation. We have, for instance, already produced small films on the challenges of small historic towns in Estonia, and these challenges are the same for Norwegian municipalities. I believe the films will be shown in the break later today, or you can also see them on our Facebook site, EEA Grants Culture, and also on Estonian platforms. We are planning to produce a publication, and of course we are planning to meet in person and have workshops, seminars, study trips as soon as physical meetings will be possible again, hopefully in near future. Our common project has met some unexpected challenges due to the corona situation. Not being able to meet and travel has, of course, affected the project development. However, we had a chance to meet in 2019 and will hopefully meet again. These photos are from a study visit in Oslo, where we discussed reuse of heritage buildings and circular economy. This is a topic that we believe will be on top of the agenda in the times to come. Reuse of buildings instead of demolishing and building new ones is fully in line with the UN sustainability goals. Climate change is the biggest challenge to our sector in the future, and reuse of buildings is part of the solution. The cooperation between Estonia and Norway under the EA and Norway grants goes back a long time. We enjoyed 10 years of cooperation on the Manor School program, an excellent program targeting local rural development and new use of rural heritage buildings, the Manor Schools. It was a pleasure to take part in this program, and the Norwegian side learned a lot. And we also used the experience from that program in this current one. Under a study tour on the Norwegian west coast with Estonian colleagues, it was actually on a ferry to Bergen, the idea came up to shift focus from the rural manor schools to small historic towns. And this topic fitted very well in with the strategy of urban development at Riksantikvarien, which was new at the time. So we immediately embraced the idea. The topic is of high importance, not only to Riksantikvarien, but also to the whole heritage sector. And then we arranged a so-called transition seminar on urban development. It was held at the premises of the National Heritage Board in Tallinn in 2017, as you can see on the photo. And then the first project meeting at Riksantikvarien the following year, where we were handed over this beautiful map of the manor schools that we have hanging in our premises, and I see it every day. I will end my session with this photo from the Norwegian west coast and the Hardanger Maritime Center. Here we see Estonians and Norwegians trying to row a traditional boat together. To row at the same pace and in the same direction without crashing, as we are actually about to do on this photo, is hard. Rowing a boat together is not as easy as it seems, and the same can be said about managing a project together. It might be hard at the start, but when we get the hang of it, it is tremendous fun. And when we succeed to cooperate, it takes us ahead in full speed. With this, I give the floor to my colleague Vignir.
Yes. I would like to start to talk about a new cultural environment policy we received last year from the Ministry of Climate and Environment in Norway. That policy, it focuses on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which many of you know probably already much about. But for those who don't, it focuses on environmental, social, and economical factors that are very important for sustainable development. This is kind of new for our sector to think so broadly. I would say about cultural heritage, that we are a part of, very much a part of the societal development. There's a vision of attractive and livable cities and towns, and an emphasis on reuse of buildings as a contribution to tackle climate change, and at the same time preserve local character and local values. This is a very much a core of our own strategy that has to do with the management of Norwegian urban cultural heritage. It's at the same time a policy document, but a strategy with recommendations and guidelines about the management and development of cultural heritage environments. And it overlaps with the Directorate's new climate strategy that just came out. For us, it's important to focus on cultural heritage in a wider perspective to achieve attractive, livable, and sustainable development. It links to our work with registries of cultural heritage landscapes of national interest and cultural heritage environments of national interest, the NB registry. The registries they signalize cultural heritage values that the municipalities and other local actors need to consider in their planning and development. It's not the same type of protection as a lot of those urban conservation areas that you have in Estonia. We have a stricter protection for some of those environments through the Cultural Heritage Act. But others are also a part of, have gained like a UNESCO World Heritage status. An example of a cultural heritage environment that is part of the NB registry is this town of Hammerfest in the north of Norway. It's a smaller town that was rebuilt after the Second World War and shares a common history with many towns in Norway. They consist of similar architecture and might be undervalued or overseen today. So the NB registry includes guidelines of how to build and maintain that cityscape when it comes to scale, form, character, and material characteristics of the urban environment. I would also want to mention some tools when talking about attractivity and livability. It's important to have some tools and methods that can help us reach those goals and visions. Riksantikvarien was a part of a collaboration a Nordic collaboration where these tools are some of the results, and you can access them online if you find them useful. We also have our own tool, DIVE, an urban heritage analysis, which is important for identifying and mapping cultural heritage environments values and identify room for development. That is also available online for those, in an English version from 2010. But a revised version in Norwegian for those who understand Norwegian. I would just briefly want to mention this example of Aker River in Oslo. That's an example of a heritage-based development, so where we use both include buildings and structures, city, landscape, archaeology, the whole spectrum. It's kind of the opposite of urban renewal, where understood as demolition and new development. And it's a very good example we find of cultural heritage-based development. The climate strategy that I mentioned before is built on findings, reports that show that building reuse and rehabilitation of existing building mass is more sustainable than building new. And the win-win situation for cultural heritage management is that you, at the same time, you preserve and develop local character, which is important for both attractiveness and livability. I would also briefly like to mention like a case of Skudenes Sound. It's like a circular economy in practice. It's a protected conservation area at the same time as it is a cultural heritage environment of national interest. And the management and development is very much based on collaboration and understanding between the inhabitants, the municipality, and builders. It includes a local material and tool bank where local people can go and borrow materials and tools. And there's also networks in place where expertise is exchanged between local heritage authority, Builders Association, and the inhabitants itself. So in a way, Skudenes Sound is a very good example of circular economy in practice. Now I would like to give the word to Åste, which will show you some more examples.
I can see a clock on our screen, and if that means I'm supposed to talk for 25 minutes, that is new to me. But anyway, I'll do my best. I was really disappointed that we couldn't go to Estonia because I have so many good friends from last time and the Manor School program. And I only see the back head of Anton Pärn, and that's not enough. I would like to go back, and unlucky for me, I'm soon retiring, so this is my last meeting with you all. And that is really a pity. I was very happy to hear Simraya talking about the locals, that the locals are very important in making attractive cities and local environments. He underlined that, and that is something I'm going to talk about as well. Else-Berit Eikeland, she also mentioned the similar wooden architecture, which I will also show you some pictures from. And also Gary Ragmar, he was talking about people creating the place, and I think that is also the case in my first example, which is from northern Norway, Vardø. It is had the same experience, not experience, but the same thing happened. I'm sorry, my English is very poor, very simple. It was first bombed by the Russians, and then it was burned by the Germans in 1944. And that gave the name to a locally initiated project, which is Vardø Restored. And here you can see a picture of all the places in Norway that was burnt by the Germans in 1944, or maybe a bit later, further south. And then also a picture of the Russian bombing of Vardø. On the screen, I hope you see all the different entities or the directorates and all the ministries who have been supporting this project. They had a very enthusiastic person leading this in Vardø, and he was able to talk everybody into supporting the project with finances. I was there also from the directorate, because we had a value generating program or asset generating program some years ago, and we also supported Vardø with some money. I will show some pictures of what we have supported and what the different directorates and ministries have been supporting. This is Vardø. It used to be a very lively fishing town, and with great trade with the Russians, the Pomor trade. But of course, after 1944, it was demolished, and they had to build the whole town, and the whole town was built up again. It still has a few old buildings, but as you can see, the most of the buildings are wooden. Luckily, the fish are coming back. Because you also know that fish, they change their route, and we also had some experience with the big a big company buying all the trawlers. They have a specific amount they can fish, and there was one big Norwegian guy, rich, who bought these lots. And but now they are opening up again, and this guy who initiated Vardø Restored, he has now bought himself a fishing boat and is out fishing. Vardø has about 2,000 inhabitants, and it was really on the decline, which I didn't tell you about, but there was doesn't matter. What they did was to prevent people from moving. What do you do first? You just put the removal van upside down, outside town. There's no way of moving now when the van is standing like this. Another good example of what they did was they're having this Gullfest, which is the seagull party. And of course, they arranged with the local fishermen to drop their all the refuse from fish, and all the gulls appeared. So they have all these good examples and good things to do to get the locals involved. I can go further. Another thing they did was to invite street artists. Two of them are called Pøbel and Dolk, which is dagger and mob, the Norwegian relatives to Banksy. And of course, these guys, they know a lot of other street artists. So the whole town was full of these paintings on the buildings. And it made it really attractive for the artists to come to Vardø. Even one of Norway's most well-known opera singers, she bought a house in Vardø. So it created a really enthusiastic environment, and these few local people, they were involved in everything. In the wintertime, they have snowball war, which is well known. The Japanese come to watch people play and fight each other with snowballs. And they have a lot of these different activities. The Cultural Heritage Fund has been supporting the remaining houses, the owner of the remaining houses. And here you can see the North Pole pub, which is one of the few, or the wooden house. And we have been supporting like storytelling in the pub, as you can see, enthusiastic people. And underneath the storytelling, there is the Grand Hotel. It's a big concrete building built in 1914. And this is owned by a private man who runs like a sausage shop, selling sausages. But he was so keen and so interested in the history of Vardø. So first he bought the old Russian consulate, and that is where he lives now. And then he bought Grand Hotel, which is now fully operational. Yes. Here you can see some strange people. Bird watching, ornithologists, they are a strange breed. And here again, this is another asset generating program, which was supported by the ministry, no, not the ministry, but the director of nature. And they had this very good idea. Just they built this bird watching houses, so you can sit and be warm and you don't need to blow out on the sea. But another thing, they invited two of the bird watchers that had posted most on the internet. And at one stage there was one strange, or not strange, but a quite rare bird who appeared. And they invited these two people, I think they were Spanish, to come to Vardø at their full expense of the local community. And of course, when these two guys posted their sighting on internet, another 15, 20 people came from Canada, from all over. And so far up in the north, they have so many different birds, and it's really an experience to be out on this little island just outside Vardø. But all along the coast to Kirkenes, there are so many interesting birds, and bird watchers, they are willing to pay. And this also means that sometimes the hotel is full. There is no capacity to come to Vardø because there are so many bird watchers. They have seen a specific bird, and then everybody goes. And another thing that draws people to Vardø is the witch monument. Between 1598 and 1692, 91 witches were burnt in Vardø. This was a combination of Sami women and also other local women that had some some quality or qualifications. They could maybe use some herbs and at least they were suspected to be witches. This monument was designed by Swiss architect Peter Zumthor, and the perpetual flame in the house is sculpted by the French-American artist Louise Bourgeois, probably pronounced wrong, but anyway. It is a chair that is always burning. And along this corridor in the monument, you can read every single story of the 9 people that was burnt in Vardø. It's really, really a strong monument. And that is the other half of the people filling up in Vardø. They are coming to see the monument. And this monument was supported by the Ministry of Culture and the municipality, and also the roads administration, because they have a national tourist road going from Vardø to Hamningberg. This is a small fishing town which was abandoned in 1964 when they had no key for their bigger boats. The other example I was going to talk a little bit about is the Trondheim. This is the city heritage management had the idea to focus on the alleys and backyards in the center of Trondheim. Trondheim is a quite big city, and it's not the population is not declining. Yeah. Anyway. It's the 3rd largest city of Norway, and it has about 200,000 inhabitants. Parts of the city center consists of small wooden houses and alleys and narrow streets. The streets are shortcuts between the squares and the open spaces, and they were dark and they were not very attractive. Rats and rubbish, and of course some of the houses were not in a very good shape either. And this was also supported by the Director of Cultural Heritage through our asset generating program. One of the things they were doing was, here you can see how it looks in the backyard, the rubbish bins, which you know that when the rats are there and the gulls and the crows, and it's not a very nice place. But they had some research on new dumpsters, which I think have been installed now. And also the unattractive backyards were painted. They had also some artists, and all these places are now or some of these places are now venues for cultural activities. In collaboration with the NGOs for the blind and the visually mobility impaired, or the people with reduced mobility, they had a new floor in between the alleys, which you can see there is maybe not so easy to see, but one of the places the blind can feel the difference in the stones, and otherwise it's possible to go with a wheelchair. I was looking at this picture and I thought, oh, I hope they have secured this door on the right a bit better, because now it's just a plank over the door, so to prevent you from falling into the street. New street lamps were developed and drawn, and also when they have their cultural lights, they put up light bulbs. I realized after I made the presentation, I picked the pictures, that it's not really very light in these alleys, even with the new lightings, at least not in my pictures. But we think it is it's much more attractive to use these small streets now after dark. Yeah, the backyards you can now use as venues for cultural activities. They have, when there is a cultural night in Trondheim, people are taking through the streets, and also people from the local authorities tell the stories about the history of this part of Trondheim. And also, as you can see, you have music, you have food, and they also use these backyards for gatherings of the local inhabitants. Education was another thing. There has been, since Trondheim is a student town, they have studies in architecture. The architecture students, they use Midtbyen, as it is called, for drawing, in their studies. You have courses in linseed painting. You have courses in plaster and lime. So they use the area for all kinds of knowledge sharing. As you can see, it was not very attractive, but after being refurbished or been fixed up, it looks much more attractive. And also the repairing these kind of buildings, they have also had courses for the craftsmen. And in this project, also the local businesses, the local inhabitants, and the local heritage management who have the project leadership, they all joined forces. And when you come, has been so successful. It was for 3 years they follow this or have this program. And they are now expanding to other parts of Trondheim, using the same type of engaging the locals and all the other interested parties. It looks a bit more attractive, but it's still a bit dark. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But it's not so dangerous for the young students to walk from university and downtown. I didn't actually think I was going to have time to talk about this, but it seems to be given more time than we realized. Barns, these red barns, you can see everywhere in Norway. This is a small example, but many of them are really enormous. And of course, a lot of them are just burnt, demolished in any way. And but some have very good ideas for using them. Our first picture, you probably didn't notice, but it was a barn with a kind of aluminium structure on the outside. And the picture on the right is from this aluminium structure, because it is now a kindergarten. And they used it for exhibition. And it used to be the place where before you had these round hay balls, which we called tractor eggs. They had, of course, the hay in silos. I hope it's the right name. Mm-hmm. And this has now become a kindergarten. So it's really, people have used their imagination and found new use for the barns. And that is very good, because it's a very typical view, or it's a typical example, or not example, typical. Yeah, well, it's very typical building in the landscapes all around the country. Another example, we have this is used to be electric trafo station in central Oslo, which has now become the gathering point of the people living around this place. And this is also mentioned in our example collection, and I guess we will have the possibility to add a lot of examples when it comes to producing the book together with this program. Another example is from the local heritage management, or the municipality heritage management in Bergen. It was the building was really they didn't know what to do with it, and they transformed it into offices. And it's really a very, very good example of what you can achieve and how you can use old buildings and put new use, and by that saving the building materials, keeping the attraction of the area, and so visit the city antiquarian, or I'm told that's not the name, but visit Byantikvaren in Bergen when you go there. It's really a nice experience. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nii, 3 küsimust. Like, whose heritage and why are we protecting it? And the context in Estonia is the Soviet heritage. Should we still protect it or not?
Yes, to try to answer that question, we in Norway we put a lot of effort in kind of creating tools for the municipalities to understand and do some value kind of processes on their own. So from our perspective, we try to focus on the what is of national interest. So it's a very big question, but I think the locals are the ones maybe that understand what is of local value the most, whilst we try to focus on values of objects and environments that have a broader interest and a relation to the national history. So in the context of Estonia, I would say, I guess, the Soviet history is the part of the legacy, I guess, an integrated part. Just as the examples you mentioned with the rebuilding of the Second World War, even though that history can be a bit problematic or difficult, it's important as a reminder for us to preserve that history as well.
I can try and answer the other question, because I think you asked about the value, how we define values when we're talking about the value generating program. And it has been very difficult because we use the Norwegian word of verdi, and it means it is value. But in Norway, we mainly use this for economic value. And for 10 years, we have tried to put other things into the value definition as well. And I think we should probably have looked for another name, because it is very difficult for people to understand that value also includes social values. It includes a lot of other things than the economic value. That has been so put into our minds from years back. So luckily, it's been a hard battle, but maybe we're succeeding in the end.
Okay, thank you for that. 2 more questions. How to engage with young and hard-to-reach communities? What's your practice?
Young and hard to reach.
You have no solution.
I think emphasis of the collaboration, like we were talking, I mentioned the methodology, DIVE methodology, which is very much used by local municipalities as to gather knowledge and collaborate with local stakeholders. everyone can participate in those kind of processes. So yeah.
But it is a fact that you get the interest for gardening, cultural heritage, and your own ancestors after you're 40 years old. Engaging the young is quite a big, it's a bit difficult.
One very concrete one. How do you manage to keep your barns in so fine condition? Is it funded by government or local authorities?
There has been a special support from the Ministry of Agriculture, but through the local municipalities, they have something they called SMILE contribution, which is now unluckily going down. So there are less getting funding from this. But then you can get support to take care of all the barn or the houses on your buildings on your farm. But it is a big interest to take care of the building, and of course then you also look for good new use.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have to shut you down now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A fruitful collaboration for the future.